Mark Gahey next of all, Ben. There've been Manchester United interest, which you reported on previously. They look
Mm.
like they're fully focused on Matthias de Ligt now, with a little bit of Jared Branthwaite thrown into the mix as well, which might skew their thinking of Mark Gahey a little bit. It looks as though Liverpool will miss out on Calafiori. There's another centre back we're going to speak about in a moment, but just on Gahey, Crystal Palace are going to be desperate to hold on to him, I imagine, with Michael Olise heading out the door already, but that might prove difficult.
So as I reported, Mark Gahey's a very interesting one. Of course, he won't make any determination on his future until after the Euros. It's as simple as that. So nothing's going to advance. He's been excellent at that tournament, albeit he's suspended, unfortunately, for the Switzerland game. And Crystal Palace's perspective is they want to keep him. And they're under no pressure to sell. The financial deadline has passed. Olise has gone. And Eberechi Eze has a release clause. So if they are to lose another, they know they're susceptible to Eze. Whereas with Gahey, they would like to keep the player. And the thing about Palace players now that the whole Roy Hodgson era has ended is that they're invested in Glasner. They finished the season strongly. Maybe they can do what Brighton did. And if they have a good season, push for some kind of European football. And Gay's not 25, 26, 27. It's not a sort of Max Kilman to West Ham situation where he wants that move. He wants to go to London. He wants to play under a former manager. Gay could still wait a year or two and see how things pan out with Crystal Palace. And if you look at the Olise path, when people thought he was going originally, it was 12 months ago. And Chelsea tried to trigger the clause and the player said, I'll sign a new deal. So it wouldn't surprise me if Palace treat it very similar and say to Gay, you can stay first and then get improved terms. And ultimately 2025 will reassess. But the reality is there are suitors, and Liverpool have looked at Gay in the past and Manchester United as well. At the moment, Manchester United have focused on Matthias de Ligt and talks are progressing, but they could sign two centre-backs. Their preference is potentially adding Jared Branthwaite and de Ligt, but the price is very high. 70 million or more from Everton who don't want to sell. So if they want two centre-backs, they're going to have to see who else is available in the market. But what I sense is that the Gay price and the Branthwaite price will not be too dissimilar. Gay is slightly cheaper if Everton continue with this valuation that's effectively yardsticking Branthwaite against Harry Maguire. But if they come down to what they perceive to be more a market valuation because they accept the player wants a move, then Gay Branthwaite will kind of be similar. And therefore, Manchester United, I'm told, are more inclined to try and get de Ligt and Branthwaite, which could open the door to Liverpool if they choose to proceed with Gay. But at the moment, there's nothing advanced from Liverpool's perspective. I know it sounds like every answer is Liverpool like a player, but they're not advanced. But that's just because they're taking their time. It's considered recruitment. They're not looking for 4, 5, 6 players. They're looking for the right players in a few core positions, centre back and in the wide area. And that's not a reflection of a slow window or a bad window or not being able to move or not wanting to spend money. It's just if you have smart recruitment and you get the kind of players you need and you trust in your young players coming through, then no business can be good business because it means that you're actually quite happy with what you've got. And this is why I think that with Liverpool, it will be about working discreetly and smartly to strengthen in those core areas. Definitely defender, definitely a winger or a wide forward. But beyond that, I think they'll be relatively happy. And then they need to decide whether or not Trent Alexander-Arnold is a fullback or a midfielder. And that might impact on Kimmich. The advantage is that both of them can be fullbacks or midfielders. So you've got the ability to use them interchangeably. And all of this means that the blend for Slot will be right. And I think the other thing I was going to say is that my genuine sense is that Liverpool want Slot to start, as he's now done, and see firsthand, because then he will know his dressing room, he'll know what he's inherited, and then even without any autonomy on the recruitment side, he'll input. And in doing so, they're not blindly signing people without Slot at least being able to settle first. And that's probably leading to a delay in the recruitment. So Slot can have a genuine voice, not just based on data, not just based on outside in, but based on actually being in that dressing room for a week or two and saying, okay, now I've spoken to senior players. Now I've seen the younger players. This is my input. And then they'll make their final decision. So the Euros, the Copa America can actually benefit Liverpool because these players like Gay are not making their decisions now. So they don't have to get sucked into a race now. So they can wait a week or two and then Slot by watching the Euros and the Copa America, or by being at training with the players that return for pre-season training earlier, can actually form a genuine in-house opinion rather than from the outside in. So you've got Gay potentially. We know also that from Liverpool's perspective, they'd love Lenny Yoro. He's the number one target, and we can talk about him in a moment. And that shows you that they are working and looking at targets, but they'll only move when the time is right. And that timing depends on when they think the best time is to move to get the most value, because you can be opportunistic in the market, when they think the best timing is when slots formed an opinion, and when they think the best timing is so as not to distract players, because you don't want to be going to a player camp and causing a storm when the player's got a quarter-final or a semi-final or a final to prepare for. Look at how Liverpool classily dealt with Slot. They were in no rush. They said, Feyenoord have got a cup final. We don't want to distract from that, so we're going to wait. Everyone said, what are they doing? Are they going to be appointing other managers? How have we not got any clarity? What's the situation with Ruben Amorim? And Liverpool were just sitting there saying, we're not being inactive. We're just waiting, because the timing to speak to Slot needs to respect Feyenoord and Slot. And that's kind of how the window works as well, especially with the Euros, the Copa America, and ultimately the Olympics, if they move for any younger players a little bit later in the window.
No, absolutely. I think you have to be spot on. And I think you mentioned the timeline there with the Copa involved, not to the Euros, and it makes perfect sense. It all kind of lines up nicely for Liverpool, and hopefully it leads to a little bit of business further down the line as well. You mentioned Lenny Yoro there. We'll spend a moment talking about him. You've told Give Me Sport recently Liverpool have been in direct contact, and quite tellingly won't give up on this one. Now, I think we've all resigned isn't the right word, but we've all kind of anticipating he will end up at Real Madrid. But just talk to us about the current situation, because it feels like Liverpool are very much waiting in the wings just in case.
Yeah, I think they're doing more than waiting in the wings. I think they are working out whether a move that suits Lille now is going to escalate the situation. And Liverpool and Manchester United both feel like Real, that Yoro is a generational talent. So idealistically, as far as dream targets, much like Bellingham, I suppose, who ultimately also ended up going to Real Madrid, Liverpool would love Lenny Yoro. And if they can get him, then they will move decisively and they will effectively pay what it takes, which still won't be a huge amount of money because he's only contracted until 2025. So the key thing will be, if Real, who don't want to pay a lot of money now, are going to back off, does Yoro want to go this summer? And if so, it can open the door to Liverpool. Where there's a complication is that the player's only contracted at the moment until 2025. And my understanding is that he won't sign a new deal at Lille. So Real are in a position where they can say, we're either offering X now and the player wants to go, or we'll take him in a free in a year's time. And they may have the belief that Yoro might be prepared to do another season and then leave on a free. And that gives Real the opportunity to make a lower bid and say to Lille, take the money now, or the player will just wait and then you won't get any money and he'll leave in a year's time on a free transfer. If he was contracted until 2026 or beyond, then Real may get outbid and Lille may accept an offer from Liverpool and not from Real Madrid. And then at that point, because Real Madrid have spent a lot of money investing in Kylian Mbappe, they've paid a big fee reasonably recently for Jude Bellingham, they may not want to match the Liverpool offer. And as a consequence, he may only have a choice between Liverpool or staying at Lille. So the next step is essentially, can Liverpool persuade the player that their option is better than Real Madrid? Or does he only want Real? And still, the industry feeling is that he'll end up at Real. They're the front runners. He's got his heart set on Real. It's a kind of unfortunate situation, but you have to understand that when the player knows he can move now or in 2025 and Real want him either way, he may be prepared to wait. And if Liverpool back off because they think that the saga's over from their perspective, Real are in a strong position to stick to their valuation for this summer and still get the player. So at the time of recording, Real feel in control of the situation, but Liverpool are prepared to meet the asking price of Lille. So don't rule out them making a formal offer. in order to test Real's resolve and the view of the player. Because if they can get Euro, then that is ultimately their number one target. But you have to be realistic. And at some point, you have to decide we're wasting our time and energy pursuing a target like that if we just think that the player's going to end elsewhere.